The first sensation was not pain. It was a sharp, insulting heat, a brutal violation that stole the air from her lungs. One moment she was standing, her voice a raw scream in the damp alley. The next, a blinding fire erupted in her side, and the grimy brick wall was scraping against her back as she slid down its unforgiving surface. Her hand flew to the source of the fire, and when she pulled it away, it was slick and shockingly dark in the dim twilight. Blood. Her blood, her vision swam, the edges blurring into a hazy vignette. The panicked, pimply face of the boy with the knife, he couldn't have been more than 19, was the last thing she saw clearly before he and his friend vanished into the gloom, melting back into the city's shadows. A gasp, ragged and desperate, escaped her lips. The world narrowed to the throbbing in her side, the rough texture of the asphalt under her legs, and the terrified face of the old man leaning over her. "Oh, dear God, you're hurt." How did it come to this? The thought was a faint whisper in the roaring chaos of her mind. Why didn't I just keep walking? 10 minutes earlier, Maya Ortega had been thinking about rent. The thought was a familiar, unwelcome companion, a low-grade hum of anxiety that lived just beneath the surface of her daily exhaustion. Her shift at the Northwood Veterinary Clinic had been a brutal 12 hours of wrangling anxious pit bulls, cleaning up messes that defied description, and trying to explain to tearful owners why a simple TPLO surgery cost more than their first car. She was a good vet tech, maybe even a great one, but greatness didn't pay the bills. Her paycheck was a cruel joke, a thin bandage on the gaping wound of her student loans, and the ever-climbing cost of a shoebox apartment in a city that had forgotten people like her existed. So she took the shortcut. The alley was a grimy, garbage-choked artery that shaved a precious 7 minutes off her walk to the bus stop. It smelled of sour milk and damp regret, but it was faster. Tonight, the usual stench was punctuated by something else. The sound of a struggle. A panicked grunt, the scuffle of worn leather shoes on wet pavement, and a thin, reedy cry for help. "Just give it to us, old man!" a young voice snarled. Maya froze, her body tensing. Every instinct, honed by years of navigating the city's indifferent dangers, screamed at her. "Keep walking. Don't look. It's not your problem." She saw other people on the main street, their figures silhouetted under the streetlights, hurrying along, heads down, pretending not to hear. They were doing the smart thing, the sane thing. But then she peeked around the edge of a dented, overflowing dumpster. Two of them, kids really, dressed in baggy hoodies, had an old man pinned against the brickwork. He was frail, with a cloud of white hair and a worn tweed jacket, but his eyes, glinting in the gloom, were not just scared. They were furious. He was fighting back, his thin arms struggling against their much stronger ones. That flicker of defiance, of a spirit refusing to be broken, snagged on something deep inside Maya. They were trying to rip a watch from his wrist. It wasn't a fancy watch, it was old, with a battered gold case and a cracked leather strap. It looked worthless, but the old man was protecting it like it was the crown jewels. "Hey!" The word tore from Maya's throat before she could stop it. It sounded louder than she expected, echoing off the wet bricks. "Get away from him! The cops are on their way!" She held up her phone, its screen dark, a bluff she prayed they wouldn't call. The two youths whipped around, their faces a mixture of surprise and contempt. "Mind your own business, lady," the taller one, Kyle, sneered. "She is my business," the old man wheezed, using the moment of distraction to shove the second boy, Brent, backward. It was a mistake. The brief act of resistance shattered the thieves' composure. Rage and panic flared in Kyle's eyes. He wasn't thinking about the watch anymore. He was thinking about the insult, the interruption. He pulled a small, wicked-looking pocket knife from his jeans. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. He wouldn't. He couldn't. He lunged, not at the old man, but at her. At the problem. And then came the fire, the hot, sharp insult to her side. The gasp, the slide down the wall. As Kyle and Brent scrambled to grab the watch and flee, the old man, Arthur, was at her side in an instant, his earlier frailty gone, replaced by a focused horror. He ripped a clean, folded handkerchief from his pocket and pressed it firmly against her wound. "You saved me," he whispered, his voice trembling with a cocktail of gratitude and shock. They took my watch. It was my wife's. She gave it to me before she passed. Across the street, a woman named Brenda Dowd lowered her phone. She had the perfect clip. The confrontation, the girl yelling, the knife, the girl slumping to the ground. It was raw, it was violent, it was viral gold. She hit stop just as the old man began to render aid, carefully preserving the most chaotic and misleading part of the narrative. The blare of sirens grew closer, a promise of help that would soon feel like another kind of assault. The emergency room at Northwood General was a finely tuned machine of managed chaos and profound indifference. The air was a sterile blend of antiseptic, bleach, and the metallic tang of fear. Maya was just another broken part on the conveyor belt. Officer Miller approached her gurney with the weary stride of a man who'd seen it all and was impressed by none of it. He had a mustache that drooped with the weight of his own cynicism. "So," he began, flipping open his notepad, "you want to tell me why you were in a known high-crime alley after dark?" I was trying to help him," Maya stammered, gesturing weakly toward Arthur, who was trying to give his own statement to another officer. "Help him," Miller repeated, not as a question, but as an accusation. "Do you know the assailants? Is there any chance this was a prearranged meeting? A deal that went sour?" The questions were a series of tiny, stinging slaps. He was profiling her. The tired scrubs, the tattoo of a paw print on her wrist, her presence in the wrong neighborhood. It all added up to a narrative in his head that had no room for a hero. She was a participant, an instigator, a liability. Her real medical treatment was no warmer. Dr. Evans, a man with a jaw so tight it looked like it could crack walnuts, examined her wound with the detached curiosity of a mechanic inspecting a faulty engine. He prodded the tender flesh around the cut, making her hiss in pain while dictating a stream of medical jargon to a young resident scribbling furiously on a tablet. "Shallow laceration to the left flank, approximately 6 centimeters, he droned, not once making eye contact with Maya. "No signs of peritoneal violation. Lucky." "Lucky?" Maya whispered, the word tasting like ash. "You involved yourself in a violent altercation and didn't get disemboweled," Dr. Evans said, finally looking at her with cold blue eyes. "In my book, that's lucky. We'll get you stitched up." He turned and walked away before she could ask another question. A moment later, a nurse with a tired, practiced smile handed her a clipboard. "Just need you to fill this out, sweetie. All the insurance information." Maya's stomach twisted into a knot colder and harder than the fear. Her insurance was a joke, a high-deductible phantom plan her part-time job offered as a technicality. The deductible was $5,000. $5,000 might as well have been $5 million. The physical pain in her side was suddenly a dull throb compared to the sharp, piercing panic of that number. Before they wheeled her off to get stitched, Arthur appeared at her side. He looked small and lost amidst the ER's institutional bustle. "I am so deeply sorry for this," he said, his voice thick with an ancient-sounding guilt. "This is all my fault. Please, can I have your number? I must make this right." Dazed and overwhelmed, Maya recited her number. She watched him tap it carefully into a cheap, old-fashioned flip phone, a relic from another era. She didn't expect to hear from him again. He was a sweet old man, a victim himself. What could he possibly do? 12 hours later, lying in a drab, beige hospital room, Maya learned the true cost of her heroism. The adrenaline had long since evaporated, leaving behind a deep, aching pain and a dread that felt like a physical weight on her chest. Her phone buzzed. It was her boss, Mark, from the vet clinic. "Maya, Mark! Listen, I heard what happened. Police involvement, a stabbing. I'm sorry, but we can't have that kind of drama around the clinic. It's a liability. I have to let you go." "Mark, wait," she pleaded, her voice cracking. "I wasn't in a fight. I was helping someone. I was the victim." I know. It's a tough situation," he said, his voice oozing a false sympathy that was more insulting than anger. "But perception is reality. I've already mailed your final check. Good luck." The line went dead. She stared at her phone in disbelief, a fresh wave of nausea rising in her throat. Before she could even process it, a text message illuminated the screen. It was her landlord. Heard there was some trouble with police. Just a friendly reminder, rent is due on the 1st. No exceptions. Her world, already tilted, was now in a full, stomach-lurching spin. Jobless, injured, soon to be homeless. And then the final blow, a frantic series of messages from her friend, Chloe. Maya, OMG, are you okay? Dude, this video is everywhere. Is this you? Chloe sent a link. Maya's finger trembled as she tapped it. The screen filled with a shaky, vertical video. The title, in bold, sensational letters, read, Crazy Brawl in Downtown Alley. Girl Gets Shanked. It was Brenda Dowd's masterpiece of slanted journalism. The clip started mid-confrontation with Maya yelling, "Get away from him!" Out of context, it sounded aggressive, like she was the one starting the fight. It showed the chaotic scuffle, the flash of the knife, and her own crumpled form sliding down the wall. It cut off right there, no footage of Arthur's distress, no sign of him rushing to her aid. The comments section was a sewer. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. LOL, she got what she deserved. Looked like a deal gone wrong to me. Why do people always have to interfere? Should have minded her own business. Natural selection at work. Maya let the phone fall from her hand. A single hot tear traced a path down her temple and into her hair. She had done the right thing, the thing you're supposed to do. The thing heroes in movies do. And in the real world, the reward was ruin. She was jobless, soon to be homeless, in crippling pain, and had been tried and convicted by a jury of anonymous trolls. An overwhelming, soul-crushing wave of regret washed over her. I should have just kept walking. The door creaked open. Arthur Harrison shuffled in, holding a small, sad-looking bouquet of daisies from the hospital gift shop, their petals already starting to wilt. He looked even smaller and more frail under the harsh fluorescent lights. I saw the video, he said, his voice a quiet rumble of sorrow. It's a lie. All of it. Maya didn't respond. She just stared at the water-stained ceiling tile, her spirit feeling as bruised and broken as her body. Arthur sat in the visitor's chair, a silent, unassuming presence. He saw the despair etched on her face. He saw the text from her landlord still on her phone screen. He watched her world collapsing in the sterile silence of the hospital room. After a long moment, he asked a simple, almost random question. The doctor who treated you in the emergency room, what was his name? Evans, Maya said, her voice flat and lifeless. Dr. Evans. Arthur nodded slowly, his gaze distant, as if filing the name away in a vast, unseen cabinet. He stood up to leave. I will call you tomorrow, Maya. Please, just try to rest. She barely registered his departure. He was a kind man, caught in the same storm as her. A powerless, well-meaning ghost. The next morning brought a new demon, this one dressed in a crisp navy pantsuit with a smile as sharp and painful as a paper cut. Miss Ortega? I'm Janice Pritchard, the hospital administrator. She radiated an aura of expensive perfume and heartless efficiency. She held a thin folder that felt to Maya like a death warrant. I'm here to discuss your payment plan. Janice sat down, crossed her legs, and opened the folder. It seems your insurance is flagging this claim. They're classifying the injury as a result of a violent altercation, which, as you can imagine, complicates things. It wasn't an altercation, Maya said, her voice hoarse. I was a good Samaritan. An admirable sentiment, Janice said, her smile never wavering. However, policy is policy. Your deductible is $5,000. We will need you to pay that amount before we can schedule any follow-up appointments or physical therapy. We simply cannot continue to render services without a firm commitment to payment. Maya stared at her, incredulous. The woman spoke of her health, her recovery, as if it were a cable subscription she was delinquent on. I don't have $5,000. I just lost my job because of this. I understand that this is a difficult situation, Janice cooed, the words utterly meaningless. But Northwood General is not a charity, Ms. Ortega. We have a bottom line to consider. The message was clear. Pay up or get out. The conversation was a labyrinth of corporate doublespeak. Every plea for compassion was met with a wall of policy. Every explanation of her situation was countered with a reference to procedure. Janice Pritchard was the smiling, polite face of a monstrous, unfeeling machine, and Maya felt herself being ground to dust in its gears. Miles away, in the silent, plush interior of a black Maybach gliding through city traffic, Arthur Harrison was on the phone. The cheap flip phone was gone, replaced by a sleek, modern smartphone. He was speaking to a man named David Chen, his head of security, his fixer, his loyal right hand for 30 years. The girl's name is Maya Ortega, Arthur. Vet tech, no criminal record, drowning in student debt. Her story is rock solid. David's voice came through the car's speaker system, crisp and clear. The two perps are Kyle Morrell and Brent Snyder. Both have juvenile priors for theft. Officer Miller, the responding cop, has 3 formal complaints on his record for profiling and harassment, all dismissed. He has a habit of closing cases quickly by blaming the victim. Arthur stared out the window, his face impassive. And the hospital? Northwood General, David replied. Bought 2 years ago by the Sterling Equity Group. They're notorious for aggressive billing practices and slashing patient care budgets to maximize returns. They've been sued in 3 other states. The video? Posted by a Brenda Dowd, a wannabe social media influencer. We've already acquired the unedited source file from her cloud backup. It shows the whole thing, clear as day. Proves Ms. Ortega acted to defend you. Arthur was silent for a long moment, the city's skyline reflecting in his glasses. Good, he finally said, his voice calm but infused with a cold, hard anger that would have terrified anyone who knew him well. Let's start with the hospital. Get me a meeting with the chairman of Sterling Equity, now. Tell him Arthur Harrison is calling. Back in the beige room, the gauntlet continued. Kyle Morrell's mother, a woman with furious eyes and a voice like screeching tires, had somehow found out where Maya was. She barreled down the hallway, screaming that Maya had assaulted her son, her baby boy. He's a good boy. He was just scared. She came at him. I'm pressing charges. Security guards had to physically remove her, but the poison had already seeped into the air. The nurses, who had been professionally distant, now looked at Maya with open suspicion. The whispers followed her every time she slowly, painfully shuffled to the bathroom. The whispers were soon given official weight. Officer Miller returned, his expression sour. Ms. Ortega, the other parties involved have filed a formal complaint of assault against you, he stated flatly. Their story is that you were the aggressor. And frankly, with this viral video corroborating a public altercation, your narrative has inconsistencies. I'm advising you not to leave town. He wasn't arresting her. He was just hanging the threat over her head, letting it rot. The injustice was a physical thing, a suffocating pressure in her chest. She had saved a life and was now a prisoner in her hospital bed, a suspect in the crime committed against her. Her phone rang. It was Arthur. Maya, how are you holding up? His voice was a calm, steady anchor. It was too much. The dam of her composure broke. A raw, ragged sob escaped her. She told him everything, Janice and the $5,000 demand. The thief's mother and her lies, Officer Miller and his veiled threats. I wish I'd never done it, Arthur, she cried, the words torn from the deepest part of her. I wish I'd just kept walking. I wish I'd let them have your stupid watch. There was a pause on the other end of the line. When Arthur spoke again, his voice was different. The gentleness was still there, but it was reinforced with something else. Something like steel. No, he said firmly. The world needs more people like you, Maya, not fewer. Your goodness is not a weakness. Their cruelty is. That is why what is happening to you cannot be allowed to stand. I told you I would make this right. Please, just trust me. Hold on for a little while longer. She didn't believe him, not really. But the conviction in his voice was the first glimmer of light she had seen in 48 hours. The next day, the light became a flood. Janice Pritchard returned, flanked by 2 burly security guards. Her smile was gone, replaced by a look of grim determination. Ms. Ortega, as you have been unable to provide payment, you are being officially discharged against medical advice, she announced, her voice devoid of any emotion. These gentlemen will escort you from the premises. This was it. The absolute bottom, thrown out of a hospital because she couldn't afford to be a hero. A tear of pure, helpless rage traced a path down her cheek. One of the guards took a step forward. "Janice Pritchard?" The voice was calm, cool, and cut through the tense air like a surgeon's scalpel. A man in a suit so perfectly tailored, it looked like it was woven from money and power stood in the doorway. He radiated an unnerving level of confidence. Janice, startled, could only nod. "I am Marcus Thorne," he said, gliding into the room and handing her a business card that felt heavy and important. "I am Ms. Ortega's legal counsel. I have 2 questions for you. First, on whose precise medical authority are you discharging my client, who is the victim of a felony knife assault and is still in post-operative care? And second, would you like to explain your actions to me or directly to the state medical board?" Janice Pritchard's face went white. Her bureaucratic shield, so effective against the powerless, had just been shattered by a legal sledgehammer. "Furthermore," Thorne continued, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous tone, "any and all attempts to collect payment from my client will be met with a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against this hospital and its parent company, Sterling Equity, for medical malpractice, patient endangerment, and the malicious infliction of emotional distress. All of my client's future medical care will be handled. You will direct all future communication through my office." He glanced at the 2 stunned security guards. "You can leave now." They looked at Janice, who, for the first time, looked utterly lost. She gave a weak, terrified nod. The guards practically tripped over themselves to retreat. Maya stared, her mouth agape. Who are you? Who sent you?" Marcus Thorne turned to her, and his severe expression melted into a warm, reassuring smile. "A friend of yours," he said kindly. "A man named Arthur Harrison. He asked me to tell you that your only job right now is to focus on getting better. He's taking care of everything else." And just like that, the tide had turned. The next few hours were a surreal blur. Maya was moved from the drab, beige room to a luxurious private suite on the top floor with a stunning view of the city. A different nurse, one with kind eyes and a gentle touch, checked her vitals. A meal arrived that wasn't gray and gelatinous, but fresh and delicious. Then, the ripples of Arthur's unseen hand began to spread across the city. A flustered Janice Pritchard was seen on a heated video call being verbally eviscerated by a man in a suit. Dr. Evans was abruptly pulled out of his rounds to attend an emergency meeting with the hospital's chief of medicine and 2 lawyers from Sterling Equity. He emerged an hour later looking like he'd seen a ghost. At the downtown police precinct, Officer Miller was summoned to his captain's office. The door was closed, but the shouting could be heard halfway down the hall. The mayor's office had called. Internal Affairs was launching a full investigation into his handling of the Ortega case. And online, Brenda Dowd's viral video suddenly vanished, hit with a copyright and defamation claim. In its place, a new video surfaced, posted by a national news network. It was the full, unedited footage from Brenda's phone. It showed the entire incident. Arthur's struggle, Maya's clear act of intervention, the brutal stabbing, and Arthur desperately trying to help her. The title was simple and devastating. Hero stabbed saving veteran, then vilified by online mobs and neglected by hospital. The public narrative didn't just turn, it flipped with the force of a tidal wave. Brenda Dowd's social media was immolated in a firestorm of digital outrage. Maya watched it all unfold from the comfort of her luxurious new room, her head spinning. Who was this quiet, unassuming old man? Who was Arthur Harrison? Just over 24 hours after Marcus Thorne's arrival, the door to her suite opened. Arthur Harrison walked in. But it was not the same man. The worn tweed jacket and scuffed shoes were gone, replaced by an impeccably tailored dark gray suit that probably cost more than her car. He wasn't shuffling, he stood tall, his posture exuding a quiet, unshakable authority. The frail, vulnerable old man was gone. In his place stood a titan. Marcus Thorne was a step behind him, a silent, watchful presence. Maya, propped up against a mountain of plush pillows, could only stare. "Mr. Harrison, Arthur, I don't understand." Arthur offered a small, sad smile, the only trace of the man he had pretended to be. My apologies for the deception, Maya. It was an experiment of a sort. An old man gets tired of being surrounded by people who only see his wallet. I wanted to see how the world treated a man with nothing, and in turn how it treated a hero who came to his aid. He walked to the massive window, looking out at the city spread below them. He gestured toward a gleaming glass skyscraper that pierced the clouds, its logo a stylized golden A. My full name is Arthur Harrison. I am the founder and CEO of Aegis Hospitality. His voice was calm, matter-of-fact. I own that hotel, and 19 others just like it across the country. Maya felt the air leave her lungs. It all clicked into place. The lawyer, the new room, the sudden reversal of her fortunes. It was him. It had been him all along. You didn't just save me from losing a watch, Maya, he continued, turning back to face her, his eyes filled with a profound respect. That watch is a keepsake, yes, but its value is purely sentimental. What you did was hold up a mirror to a world I've become too insulated from. In that alley, you showed courage, but in this hospital, you showed something more. Integrity. You faced down indifference, contempt, and institutional cruelty, and you never once lost your own humanity. Your courage didn't end with the stabbing, it was forged in the hours that followed. He wasn't just a rich man paying a debt. He was a king who had walked among his people in disguise and had found one truly noble soul. The reckoning was swift and absolute. In a cold, sterile boardroom, Arthur Harrison, flanked by a team of lawyers, faced the board of the Sterling Equity Group. As of 9 a.m. this morning, he announced calmly, I have acquired a controlling interest in Northwood General Hospital. My first act as the new chairman will be to establish the Maya Ortega Good Samaritan Fund, a permanent endowment to cover 100% of all medical costs for any individual injured while rendering aid to another in this city. My second act will be to accept the immediate resignations of Ms. Janice Pritchard and Dr. Robert Evans. In the background of Maya's mind, she saw a phantom image of Janice clearing her desk, her face a mask of disbelief, and Dr. Evans being escorted from the grounds, his arrogance finally stripped away. The Internal Affairs investigation, armed with the unedited video and sworn testimony from Marcus Thorne's investigators, found Officer Miller guilty of gross misconduct, dereliction of duty, and targeted harassment. He was fired from the police force, his pension revoked, and he now faced a federal civil rights lawsuit. Kyle and Brent were arrested. Their pathetic defense crumbled in the face of incontrovertible video evidence. Their mother was last seen weeping on the courthouse steps as her good boys were led away in handcuffs. And Brenda Dowd, the wannabe influencer, was hit with a defamation lawsuit so massive it erased her online presence and ensured she'd never profit from twisting the truth again. A courier delivered a letter to Maya's former landlord, informing him that any attempt to evict Ms. Ortega would be met with the full, formidable legal force of Aegis Hospitality. Her old boss from the vet clinic called, groveling, begging her to come back after his business was flooded with negative reviews. She politely declined. A few months later, the scars on her side had faded to a pale, silvery line. Maya stood not in a hospital room, but in a stunning penthouse office that seemed to float above the city. Arthur's office. She was no longer a patient, but a colleague. She looked healthy, strong, her eyes bright with a purpose that had been missing for years. Your medical debt is gone, Arthur said, standing beside her at the window. Your name is cleared, but that is just wiping the slate clean. A simple reward is just money, Maya. It's an insult to what you did. I want to offer you an opportunity. He turned to her, his gaze serious. That fire I saw in you, that refusal to back down when everything and everyone was trying to crush you, that is the rarest and most valuable commodity in the world. The Harrison Foundation, my company's charitable arm, is establishing a new victim advocacy division. It needs a director, someone who understands the system from the inside out, someone who knows what it feels like to be chewed up by it, someone with unshakable integrity. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. I want that person to be you. We will fund your education, any degree you want. We will provide any training you need. I am not offering you a handout, Maya. I am offering you a sword and a shield to continue the fight you started in that alley. Tears welled in Maya's eyes, but for the first time in a long, long time, they were not tears of pain or fear or rage. They were tears of overwhelming gratitude, of a future she never could have imagined. She accepted. The final image was not of a victim. It was of a warrior. Maya Ortega, looking out over the vast, sprawling city, no longer a casualty of its indifference, but a guardian for its forgotten, a protector for those who might otherwise fall through the cracks. Her ordeal had not broken her. It had been a crucible, forging her into something more. She had been tested, and she had triumphed. And now her real work was just beginning.